Welcome to the Jay Martin Show. Now, any investor in the junior mining business knows that when Rick Rule writes a check, you should probably pay attention. Now, one of the companies that he's a shareholder of recently announced that they doubled their revenue. Actually, they more than doubled their revenue from 2023 to 2024. And so today, I've invited the CEO, Alex Woodyer-Sharon, on to discuss the results in addition to today's red hot gold market. I firmly believe that there's never been a better time to be a gold equity investor than right now because the metal is ripping, the equities have not responded yet, and there's a window of opportunity right now that will eventually close. So here is Alex Woodyer-Sharon. Let's dive right in.
This is Jay Martin.
Okay, here I am with Alex Woodyer-Sharon from Empress Royalty. Alex, it's great to have you back on the program. I've been looking forward to this.
Me too, Jay. Thanks so much for having me back.
Yeah, because I think the first time I had you on the show, it was 2021. You had just launched Empress. You were sort of a aspiring royalty streaming company, pre-revenue, obviously, but you'd locked up an amazing finance partner, being Endeavor Financial, which gave you both access to cash and global reach. And I think for the next 2 years, as far as I could tell, you were living on an airplane, looking at deals all over the place. Crazy busy, and you locked up a lot. You guys have done a ton. So 2023, you put the company in revenue, $3 million in revenue, projected to double in 2024. Financials came out last night. You beat your target from 3 up to just over 8 million in revenue. So congratulations. And I want to dive into all this today and much more. So thanks for coming back on the program.
No, thanks. It's such an exciting time to be here, especially after getting our year-end financials out last night.
Yeah. Okay. So let's walk through that a little bit for anybody who's just tuning in for the first time. I always tell people whenever we're looking at a royalty company, like look at the current financials for sure, but look at the portfolio expansion plans, the projected portfolio expansion plans, and the pipeline, because that's where the juice is, right? And in Empress's case today, if I've got this right, with your current portfolio, yes, more than doubled revenue 2023 to 2024. You could do absolutely nothing moving into 2025, and you're projecting a double in revenue again based off of current portfolio growth and expansion. Have I got this right?
Exactly. We've got 2 assets that are ramping up production, so that will what we're forecasting is doubling again for 2025, and that's if we did nothing else. But we're aggressively looking at new opportunities at the moment to bring into the portfolio. Okay,
so walk me through the highlights. Financials came out last night. What do you want to share with the audience today?
So we put out revenue of US $8 million. That's 25% above what we were forecasting for 2024. And it's 2.2 times higher than our revenue for 2023. We've achieved positive operational cash flow of $3.5 million US. Meanwhile, we've kept the team lean, and we've G&A is about $2 million US. We really are, as you mentioned, able to do this through our partnership with Endeavor Financial. I'm ex-Endeavor Financial, so it's working with a lot of the team there to source new opportunities, be able to quickly vet them, and then bring them into the portfolio is the goal.
Yeah. Okay. One thing I want to, what's the current value of the companies around the net asset value, around 70 million? Is that accurate?
Exactly. About 68 million US is what the net asset value of the portfolio is. And we're forecasting over the next 5 years off just those 4 initial investments that are revenue generating. We're forecasting about $78 million US in revenue cumulatively over the next 5 years. And that's using $2,500 gold and $30 silver.
Okay. So I just want to point something out, especially to all my commodity university students, because you're paying attention to those numbers right now, I know. And I had 2 companies on the show recently. Both were explorers, but had completed a PEA. So they had a resource. And the net asset value of each company came back around $250,000. And the reason I want to point that out is because, they're valued based off of their potential. They've discovered a resource, and the PEA deemed that a certain value, in each case around $250,000. Both of those companies are far from producing revenue and probably never will. I mean, after you complete the PEA, the odds are still against you that you'll ever become an economic project. That's how risky this business is. And I use that as a glaring example of the disproportionate values that are allocated and the upside when you find a company, and yeah, like Empress right now, positioned as you are, generating cash and building up the treasury, projected to grow if you do nothing, but you're not going to do nothing. We're going to talk about that. So just a little anecdote I wanted to share, especially with the Commodity University students, because you're paying attention to that. So just over 8 million revenue in 2024 coming from 4 producing assets, globally distributed, right? You're in Peru, you're in Mexico, you're in Mozambique and South Africa, I believe. So start at the top. Let's go to Mexico and maybe just break down as much as you can for me where that 8 million comes from project by project basis.
Absolutely. So we have the Talahueto Silver Stream. This is on Luca's project in Durango, Mexico. Luca's a publicly traded company. Dan Barton-Holden just recently took over as CEO, and they're doing some exploration work on that. We invested $5 million into this, and we got 100% of their silver up to a certain amount of ounces, up to 1.25 million ounces, and there's a step down. But with this investment that we've done, we've already received cumulatively since our initial investment over $4 million US, and out of our breakup, $4 million US, 4.2 million to be exact. And from the 2024 numbers, that's about 3.8 million US. So very significant revenue portion for us. And it's also pure silver coming into Empress. So that was one that was developed when we invested and is now producing. They're expected to hit nameplate capacity soon. So that is part of our increase in revenue, is watching that one get to full production in 2025. Staying in Latin America, we've got the Sierra Antipite project. This is one where we invested $10 million, helping them expand their production. It was an existing producer. We've been receiving consistent revenue from this initial investment for the last 2.5 years. In 2024, we received close to $1.6 million US in revenue. Cumulatively, we've received about $4.8 million. So we've got back close to about half our investment back on that one already.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
We then have one in Mozambique. This one we invested $3 million into. We received over $2 million in 2024. It was a development asset. It got into production, and we received $2 million in 2024, as I mentioned. Cumulatively, we've received over $4.2 million. So we've got about 140% return on that investment. This was one where there was an initial 3-year mine life plan with additional concessions nearby. They've been working through those. They brought in additional concessions in. So this one should have a lot longer life left in this one as well. I was just on the ground there meeting with the new management team and the owners of the project. Very exciting what's going to be happening at Manica. And the same for Galaxy, which is the one we brought into the portfolio in March last year. We were just in South Africa visiting that site. We gave them the $5 million to help them. They've got a fully operational plant. We gave them additional capital to help them buy new underground equipment, open up some new faces, and feed that mill. And that's just starting to happen now. So it's very exciting times for the Galaxy, which is owned by Golconda, and the progress that they're making there. It's been fantastic. We were there a year ago when we first made the investment, and then going back now and seeing the real changes and the equipment changes and the advancements there.
That's where you flew directly after my conference. I think you're like, we were supposed to get together the next day, and then you're like, I actually got to fly to Africa tomorrow. And I was like, okay. Or both. Yeah.
We basically packed the booth up, and I jumped in the plane. I went to Galaxy and to Manica to check on the operations, and then on to the Indaba conference. But we're very hands-on with our investments. We're active investors. We're not passive investors. So we do site visits. We get monthly reports. In some cases, we get weekly reports. We talk with the management team. We understand their budgets. So we're very much a partner with the mining companies that we invest in.
Yeah. Okay. Now, one thing I'll point out is you haven't had to complete an equity raise since 2022, which for shareholders means no dilution. And that 2022 raise was actually a bit of a special one. It was sort of inspired by Rick Rule, who wanted some equity in the business. Is this correct?
Yeah, absolutely. We did it. We had a $2 million financing. That was specifically so that Rick could get a position into the company with a few other key people with him. And so that was done, almost 2.5 years ago now. And we've been, self-funding, cash flow positive. But having supportive shareholders like Rick has been fantastic. We've got, Frank Holmes, US Global. We've got Miros Minova from Smart Asset Management. We've got some of our board and management. We own 25% of the company. That's Endeavour Financial, and then Terra Capital, which is led by Jeremy Bond in Australia. So I'm very, we've got very strong shareholder base and supportive shareholders for our growth plans.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, let's talk about those. And, it was a blast having you on stage at the VRIC alongside Rick and Maria Smirnova. And we were discussing, the question that I wanted to debate with you all was whether or not cash was the most important resource in the resource business. And, where we kind of landed was like most of the time, yes, but also people, right? And from your shareholder base, that comes part and parcel. Rick brings cash. Rick also brings influence and distribution and a whole suite of things.
Yeah. People are absolutely, it's like when we're looking to invest ourselves, it's about the management teams that we're investing in. And that's absolute key. We've usually got multiple touch points and contacts with the management team and board. And when we look to deploy cash into these companies, because, we're a little bit different from some of the other royalty companies. We're not buying existing third-party royalties. We're not doing prospect generating. We're directly investing money into companies, getting them either into production or expanding upon production. So it is that cash investment for us. But again, it comes down to the people and obviously the economics of the project and the location. And we're globally open. So we are going to continue to look in South America and Africa.
Okay. Now, let me ask you that. Where's the opportunity right now for a royalty streaming company? I remember back in 2021, and everybody watching this will remember the surge in royalty companies that suddenly listed, right? All over the map. And it was in a very tough 2 years following that in the resource business. And you don't hear from a lot of those names anymore. Empress is growing. I know you're looking, and you put out this conspicuous press release about a week ago about a deal you're looking at, right? And you can't share much, but I know you're looking at something, and obviously it's exciting because you press released it. Where is the opportunity right now for a company like Empress? What's the deal size? What's the company size? Talk to me about that.
So we have about 20 million US available to us from Nabari. It's a debt provider. So we can deploy that capital into new investments without having to go back and further dilute the shareholders. That's important to us. We're also cash flow positive. We're starting to accumulate cash to grow the portfolio. We're looking at one opportunity in the US right now. We are in advanced discussions, and we'll leave it there for that one. But that would be great if it does come into the portfolio. We're taking more of a regional approach now. And so we're going to be finding experts with boots on the ground in Africa and South America that can really drive deal flow to Empress, backing off what Endeavour Financial brings as well. It really is about bringing new investments in. As I mentioned, we're all large shareholders in this. So we have been patiently deploying capital. We go through a rigorous due diligence process. Technically doesn't stack up, we're not going to advance them. But we are very keen to grow the portfolio and bring in similar ones to we've done before in that $5 to $10 million range. And again, directly investing into companies, helping them get in production or expand production capacity. Because for us, it is all about revenue. And now finally, I can show the financials for the year end that demonstrates how revenue focused we are.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So when you think about these geographic experts and jurisdictional experts, more capital partners, deal finders, both, what's the suite of expertise that you're looking for?
It's a combination of both. It's definitely people that we've all worked with in the past. So not only what we were investing in, we're working in the past and have that network that we're tapping into, but the individuals that we're looking to team up with are part of the extended network that we have. So as we build that sort of formula out and those opportunities come in, it'll be coming through people known to us that have that expertise, mining, engineering, geology, finance, who understands the country risks and how to structure there, all those elements that we constantly look at as we do deals.
Let me ask you, because I know you're looking at probably thousands of deals per year, you and your team, obviously. You've scaled Empress very quickly, right? And you've continued to deliver on your promise to shareholders and do exactly what you say you're going to do. How do you get to the no on a deal? You're looking at something that's been put in front of you. It's the 100th deal you've seen that month. How do you expedite that decision-making process, Alex, so you find the good stuff? You can be specific and patient, but aggressive when you see something that just looks right.
Yeah. We probably look at, dozens of deals, not thousands, because there's so much work into looking at them. There's ones that come through us to the investment bankers, which we can quickly filter through. But getting to the no is it's the people, that can be an immediate no. Who's operating, what are they doing in country, who's the board. So that can be a quick yes. That's a very quick yes or no. And then it's the country itself, quick yes or no. And that comes down to how we know things are currently happening in that country, not historically, but currently happening in the country, and where we see that country going and what the opportunity is there. We went into Peru during the federal elections a couple of years back when most people were walking away from it. We had enough information and intel to understand and feel comfortable with that risk profile. So we are going into those types of environments. We are also, part of the no is the project itself. And that's where we have, technical experts, especially David Lang, who's our technical advisor. He's had over 40 years of experience. He's the chairman of Fortuna. He was the CEO of Endeavour Mining, of Equinox, of various. He's got an extended network to be able to hire also those third-party engineers and groups to look at the project, who are experts in that particular area of the world and understand that particular mining process. So we're really able to use that through our network and experience.
Yeah. I mean, when you talk about those people, we began the conversation discussing that the growth of Empress can occur right now just riding on the growth of your producing portfolio. That is dependent on managers doing the right thing, right? And continuing to deliver on their promise. And that's the tie-in, Empress, the people, the investment, the growth.
Absolutely. And again, as we're sort of active investors, we know what's happening with the projects. We're able to work with them because it's junior mining. Everything goes according to plan. And we saw that with Talaweto, and now with Danburn Holding coming in, the transformation there. So we're very hands-on and active with our investors in that sense.
Can I ask your perspective on jurisdictional risk? I always like to hear this because it varies so much. And I talk to certain entrepreneurs or investors, and they're like, oh, we only go with tier A jurisdictions because we feel like geopolitically the world's way more uncertain than it is. Whereas if you ask somebody like Rick, we've talked about Rick today a few times, if you ask Rick, he'll tell you there's just different political risk in Canada and the US than you'll find in Peru. It's still there. It's just cloaked in regulation, right? But it absolutely is present and sometimes worse. How do you process and determine that?
Yeah, I mean, we haven't necessarily been looking to invest in Canada just due to the regulatory issues here. It hasn't necessarily been the right fit for us. But, where we go, we're going countries we've been before, or we know how to operate in there. The biggest thing is being able to get the money out of the country. So, if we're investing in, we want to be able to get our gold and silver out of the country. So that's kind of the framework. If we can do that, we can look at what it is. Obviously we do site visits. We have to have enough safety and security to be able to go to these sites and look at them. But most of it is all coming down to what is the legal framework within the country. Can we structure a proper agreement? All of our investments are asset-backed investments, so we take security over them. We want to make sure the laws can be upheld, that we can take security if we need to, if things went awry. But most importantly, it's being able to get the money out of the country and be able to get our gold and silver.
Can you overview that security-backed process for us a little bit and keep it high level, but just describe, because it's a bit of a novel concept for this industry.
Yeah, so I'll use a good example with Sarah Sun, who owns the Sarah Antapite project that we've got the mine in Peru on. We invested $10 million. We are first ranking security on that. So we have first lien essentially against the plant, the concessions. And that plant and concessions is, valued at about close to $60 million. Even more if you look at what Bonaventura, who originally owned the mine, put into it. So we take security over it. We've got first ranking security at Manica. We have first ranking security at the Galaxy mine in South Africa. With Talaweto, we were ranked behind Trafigura and another group. So we put David Rhodes, actually our chairman, went on the board of Luca, and as the chairman of Luca, and been instrumental in the management changes over there to get Luca back on track. So we are very hands-on, but we do have that. And that's part of the streaming agreement. It's more security backed than, say, just a royalty agreement.
Yeah. Okay. I want to talk about the future a little bit, and maybe let's zoom out high level. Alex, what's the grand vision for Empress? What do you want this company to be? Think forward 5 years or so.
It's really cool being here now after we launched the company with a concept. When I first talked to you, we had this vision of what we wanted to do. And now that's coming to fruition, we're delivering. It's to repeat it, right? We've done 4 investments. We deployed, close to $23 million into the portfolio. The asset value is $68 million. I want to repeat it. I want to bring in further investments into the portfolio. We mentioned the one in the US. Hopefully that's something we can talk about soon if that does advance. But to continue to bring in similar assets we've done to date, and drive that revenue and have the success from the pure exposure to gold and silver, because we are only exposed to gold and silver at Empress.
That's
So
right.
where commodity prices and some of the forecasts I've been seeing coming out, it looks like it could be pretty amazing, significant, even further increase in our revenue from the commodity prices.
And given the track record of deal size, sort of that $10 million, $5 to $10 million sweet spot, you mentioned cash is beginning to build up in the treasury, and you do have access to the $20 million credit facility with Nabari. You might not need to finance in the future. How would you respond to that? Any plans to raise capital in the future to grow faster? Are you satisfied with the weaponry in the arsenal right now, and you can execute your plan with it? Where are you at?
Yeah, I mean, we're mandated, and we were from the very beginning, to go up to investment sizes of 25 million. And
Okay.
that's because we know that there's a gap in the market. There's other sources of financing, but for companies trying to source sub 25 million, there's not a lot of options in the streaming and royalty space. So that's why we want to stay in that space. As we grow and we accumulate cash, and we've got the debt facility and cash is coming in, we'll hit that 25 potential investment mark. It's important to keep the portfolio balanced and the diversity in there. And as we grow, the fifth, the sixth, the seventh, we'll show that. Will we be doing $15 million ones? Possibly. Do we need to raise equity at this point? Absolutely not. We're cash flow positive, and we've got the facility from Nabari. But never say never. If the right opportunity came along that made sense for the mix in the portfolio and it was cash driven, we'll see. Right now, my head is down and it's focused on $5 to $10 million, Africa, South America, this one in the US, that are either producers, near-term producers, bringing revenue in so we can more than double our revenue for 2025.
Okay. I have a question for you as an investor, because I love speaking to you about this, because you're allocating capital as I am, as my audience is, right? And so we have a lot more in common than the average entrepreneur I have on the show who's building a development company or something like this. And here's how I process the gold price. This is where I want to go, because a lot of my audience is like, what's going on? Gold is, at all-time highs, and the equities aren't really responding aside from the major producers. I feel very differently about it. When I see the equities begin to run, I actually get anxiety, because I'm like, the window is closing, right? When the share prices start going up, I get really anxious about it, because I'm like, the window is shutting. Did I position enough? Did I do what I should have done in the time I had? Because that time is coming to an end. And I understand the frustration. Everybody wants share prices to go up. I'm an outlier in that. Eventually, yes, but just give me some time. How do you process that? You're allocating capital, there's a time to hunt and there's a time to harvest for a company like Empress. How are you reading the market right now?
We've definitely been harvesting in terms of just sitting back and not sitting back, but we've been definitely harvesting the while for the last bit. I really do want to get out there and hunt right now. There's a lot of opportunities I've been talking to for the last 2 years that are starting to come to the point now where they thought they could raise equity and they can't, or they've got some equity, but it's not enough, or there's companies that want to do a restart to get some initial capital coming in and then bigger expansion plans later on. We're seeing a lot of opportunity and continue to. So I think now for us is switching from that harvesting to hunting. Who knows what's going to happen with the equity markets? You see some movement, some not. Some of the forecasts I'm seeing for gold is outstanding, and same for silver. So we can deep dive into that early this morning of where that could potentially go. There's a lot of opportunity out there. I don't think the window's going to, I hope the window's not going to close anytime soon. From Empress's side, as a personal, as a private investor, but from the Empress side as well, there's a lot of opportunity because the equity markets haven't started to reflect it. But there's also a lot of opportunity with private companies as well. So if the equity markets do move, we've got a lot of opportunity.
Yeah. Are you looking at as many private deals as public, would you say?
Yeah, probably more on the private side than public.
More on the private side. Why is that?
Less access to capital. So a lot of groups don't want to take on debt, or it's part of a stepping stone to something else. And we really like those kind of stories where it's not just X. It's our money will help them do this now and allow them to do X in the future, and we can be involved in that bigger picture. So that's why I do like the private groups. They don't have such a complex structure as well in a lot of the cases, but it does require a lot more due diligence because we can't rely on what's publicly disclosed. So there's definitely a lot more legal DD that goes into it and a lot more technical DD that goes into analyzing those companies. But again, it's a combination of both. We were close on 2 deals towards the end of last year, and neither one came to fruition. So until they're actually signed and are done, we'll see where we land. But it really is to grow this year is the plan with new investments.
Yeah. Well, good for you for getting a deal close to the finish line and then deciding not to do it, because that's an emotional roller coaster. But,
It is. It's tough. It's again, we're large shareholders. So to deploy this capital, we want to make sure the next couple deals, we've just now stabilized the portfolio revenue with 4 sources of revenue. And that's a huge milestone for us. So now layering in 5, 6, 7, 8 will stabilize it even further and bring more diversification in. But that's constantly at the front of our minds, is that diversification and the stability in the portfolio. And we did 2 development assets, 2 producers, all 4 now are producers. So now is the time to possibly look at development stage assets again. We were just focused on producers for the last year. So as you also an investor, you shift your portfolio and your investment thesis adjusts as stories advance in your portfolio, as companies advance.
Yeah. 100%. Okay. I love it. I love your mention of 5, 6, 7, and 8 in terms of the portfolio. Let's go. Yes. And so, just to recap again, congrats on the financials that came out last night. It's it's just great to see you delivering on your promises. And since I met you in 2021, you're doing everything that you told your shareholders you're going to do. You've been very fiscally prudent and responsible, good chaperone of shareholder dollars. Very, very important. That, obviously attracting the likes of investors like Rick Rule, who are very disciplined in that regard, need to see, decent management ownership and all of it. More than doubled revenue 2023 to 2024 from 3.5 up to just over $8 million US. You could sit on your haunches now and that would grow, probably double again, given the portfolio projected growth of these 4 producing assets. But as you press released last week, you're not doing that. You're out hunting aggressively right now and looking at something obviously that's quite exciting. So near-term news to look out for, guys, is that, right? What's the follow-up to the press release? Check out the Empress Royalties website for their news flow, and you'll see what I'm referring to. I'll put a link in the show notes here. But I love what you're building, Alex. It's always refreshing talking to an entrepreneur, as mentioned, who's also and primarily an investor in the sector. Anything else you want to leave my audience with today before we wrap it up?
I'm excited to come back and talk to you again in the near future.
Yeah.
Very excited. But also, I'm so proud of the team and for everyone involved that's gotten Empress to the point where it's at now. We'll have $8 million cash flow positive. It's taken us a while to get here. But I'm very proud of where we're at, and I'm very excited about the growth that's coming.
The party's just getting started.
It is.
Yeah. Awesome. All right. Look, thanks so much for coming back on. It's great to see you again. And I look forward to doing this again as well. We'll get you in the studio in Vancouver and get the next update at a timely time. So, okay. Thanks so much, Alex. I appreciate you.
Thank you. I appreciate you too, Jay.